Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It is Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And right now it is Mercury day turning into a soul night. And the sun is on Procyon in Cancer. This is Venus hour. And Mercury is on the 22nd degree of Leo. So Mercury right now is trining Chiron in Aries, but also trining Aries in Aries. I'm going to call on Procyon to sweeten the verdict, denucleification wisdom, being favored, having this message go in a favorable way, reaching, making a message, making a point without making enemies, and bringing good things to the world. And I'm going to call on Andromeda for reconciliation, reconciling what we thought was irreconcilable, for releasing of hostages, releasing from torture, releasing from inquisitions. And so together this is a very appropriate time to discuss what this Mercury 22 Leo is doing right now in the sky. So I'm going to tell you a little story. After recording, I went to travel, went to visit my parent, and in the meantime, the in-between was me going through tending to my Chiron wound. It was Mercury day, so I worked with the beautiful door opener by Sphere and Sundry to curate Sedna, to curate my Chiron, calling on Hermes, and just kind of paying attention to that. And so when I was going through the day, I went through certain healing to do with the belief that pain is the way to gain, okay? Which was very funny. I was even working on my fingers, like finger yoga, and I was giving myself pain and I didn't even notice, because the pain that's practiced, this exercise, was considered just kind of like the usual thing. It's like, no problem. Whereas other things, when you think about educating children, I understand that this is not the way and not the road. And I realized that there was an energy that was accompanying me that had to do with laws, with children, and so on, and with expandables, with murder of children, murder in general. And that was a kind of going through a process. And the Mercury is children, it's trade, it is lawyers, it is vehicles, transportation, it is language, it is technology. And I was tending to, kind of like the reset, all the ways in which both the cities and technology are actually supporting us, versus the places where, I don't know, they take our freedom, we don't pay attention to what's happening on the expense of the children and all the damage it causes. And as I was going through this deep healing that I may address in another video, to that Chiron wound and understanding what the energy came about, and in general what's happening to me with astrology when I do these videos, and I go through these processes, I was just sitting at my parents and they began to read 2 or 3 cases of a mother that murdered their children. And that was like, something is on the 22, very likely Mercury's children, but I could see how the mothers was coming from another energy, and that gave me like a ton of eurekas. So in each case, there was the question of, was it like a secret society where they were doing ritual sacrifice, or was it that they were administered pyramidal or extra pyramidal murder pills that are called antipsychotics, and then of course the person wants to get the toxins out of the body and they can't get violent to themselves and others, because it's not medicine. That's simply put, okay? Or what the heck was happening there. And so Mercury 22 is very much the theme of children being expendable, children being murdered. And that is that was kind of like the topic, okay, the topic of the day. So you see how when this Mercury 22 comes about, all these things that need to be addressed around it, they rise up. And Mercury is also news. So that was kind of like on the news. When it comes to the practice of expendable children, or abolishing expendable children, we really need to understand that, especially with the sun, okay, so in Leo, when it comes to the people that are popular people, okay, sun is popularity. It can be actors, it can be politicians, it can be leaders, royal family, performers, and that we need to understand that in the world today, they are all the expendable children that grew. And what they do to these people is they make like a prison cell experiment, which is unethical, even with the shockers, with the electric shockers, and they still do that, and they raise the children in that way. And so what's happening in the world today is that this experiment now is being done on the world. And you ask, what is the solution? Okay, what is the jail experiment? You basically say, okay, one group is the inmates, one group is the wards. And then you give the wards shockers, electric shockers, and then you just leave them to interact. And then with the shockers, they have to do to increase the electric shock each time. And people basically discover their own inner sadist in this experiment, and then of course they replace the groups. Okay, so this is a part of what's done in satanic ritual abuse. There are way worse things even. Okay, it's like and that's currently what's being done in the world, where the answer to such experiment is, of course, to unite and shock those who make the experiment instead, right? To not go through these divisions. And right now in the world, that's what's on. Okay, there is this experiment, there is this kind of movie going on, and we see how all the trigger points of all humanity are kind of like being activated, because this thing is done to children. Okay, and some of them get murdered in the process. Many of them get murdered in the process. This is also children murdering adults. If you listen to Annika Lucas, torturing, raping, murdering adults. Okay, then around us we see all kinds of themes. I live in Israel, and we know that Israel was the first Pfizer hostage lab, where I say, oh, it feels like North Korea. Then I escaped to Netherlands, and then I channeled the man whose first line to me was, this country is North Korea. And I saw how the structure is basically designed like that for years, and it's actually North Korea that's opening to the world, because North Korea will not be the same after what happens in the world right now. And so basically we see all kinds of jail experiments being designed, but in a way where we don't really feel that that's what's going on. And now this morning I asked to repent towards the people and the victims of this system that we weren't paying attention to, because we weren't aware that that's what's up. Okay? And and so we have to understand that this is not a modern design, but this is also a tribal tribal thinking. Tribal thinking is just another way for a jail experiment, because there is this tribe and that tribe, and there are some tribes that believe that other tribes were meant to serve them, and slavery is not a new thing. A good point to think about is Al-Qaeda, because Al-Qaeda tends to mass grieving, but also mass murder. And there is a lot to do with grieving and processing and tremendous loss, and the wound of murder, of torture, of rape, both as victims and as perpetrators. Both of it is true, okay? There's an attempt to be powerful in the face of tremendous loss that can get people to be violent. And of course, if you run into kind of the Frantz Fanons or the Basser Vanderkolks to say, hey, you're liberating yourself from slavery by doing that, then you understand how vulnerable and susceptible are the people that experience this mass loss and mass grieving and tremendous helplessness to such programming of another form of the jail experiment. Okay? Whereas if you would run into somebody that would actually offer you a place to process the grief and the anger and the rage without saying, oh, go take it out on, oh, you see, this girl is free. 12 years old girl. Oh, but she's German. Okay, and oh, but you don't have housing. Yes, but don't you pay attention to the fact that you don't get housing unless you rape her? How about you talk to her and you tell her what was told to you, and you ask her how can she help? Maybe she can call her parents. Maybe she can call on somebody. But you don't have to talk to her. If you had somebody that would give you housing first, an open dialogue and a space to process your grief, rather than say play on your vulnerability so that you would commit more torture, more violence, and then it's more to the system of the jail oppression, which nobody benefits from, by the way. Being in a situation of perpetual violence, nobody gains from that. The only reason Hitler did that is very likely because he got cyanide. And cyanide is, you die within, I think, 3 seconds, or probably more. But this is a poison where you can kill yourself. And you die quickly. Okay, so no torture. And so whatever to do this cyanide, whatever he had to do, he did. And he went along with that. And then he committed suicide. But the people who didn't agree to go all this ranking, all this way, as he did, these people die differently. By the system, they trade in death. Please understand, this is not even Christianity, Abrahamic religions, or whatnot, or Masons, or no. What did Masons do? Masons study all the practices, the indigenous practices in all the world, and bring them together. So this is also based on tribal practices. And one of the principles of when you study such cultures is basically, I try it first, and then I see what I bring, what is the experience, and then I bring it to the next place or to the next level. This is also for what we call satanic ritual abuse, is basically a conglomerate of such practices from indigenous societies that were adopted into Abrahamic religions, into Masonry, into Illuminati, into the Inquisition. And by the way, on a side note, I saw a jewel today with the green stone that was called a Romy stone. I said, what Romy stone? It says Romy stone. It was very beautiful. And I just thought about, well, it is the fall of Romy, so they say. When I see beautiful jewel, and the price was 999 shekels. I said, you know, and I want to get the money because I don't want a discount. It's such a beautiful number. This is what a Mercury talisman will do to you. You play a little with your own head to get playfulness, and so on. But that was on another note. And what I was speaking with the person in the shop, I was saying, the whole world is changing, and you think about what's true wealth, and so on, and how we have it without the practice of expendable children, that's all across the board. And so you think about all these royal significations to these topics of trade, of children, of laws, of practices, and of cultures. Okay, Sun is very culture oriented. If you go to Africa, I don't remember the name of the god, but all the symbolism looks exactly like Hermes. Exactly like Hermes. And I don't know if when there were white slaves, did they take it from the Hermes, from the Western occultism, or did the whites, when they were slaves, taking it from their masters that were black people? Oh, and the whites, when they were enslaving, were bringing that or were taking that from African societies. And tribes is not just African or American or Indian. Okay, we have Nordic tribes, we have Bedouin tribes, we have Israeli tribes, and so on. So another fascinating thing that happened today is where in Russia was, I think, academic professor of Kim Jong-un that was murdered. So that's something I think to pay attention, because the whole joining of North Korea to the war is basically based on the joining to the BRICS and trade, yes, but there's also a balance of power that now is changing. So this is all things to consider when we come to tackle what's going on in the world, because a lot of people are beginning to be worried, and rightfully so. What will be with the biometric passports? What will be with all the information? Today I saw, and again, I live in Israel, the health organization, the Ministry of Health in Israel, kind of like of our GGD, asked for the HMOs to give all the details of the DNA of the people who plan to have babies. Okay? And so, of course, again, you see how this Mercury 22 plays a role with the news. And a lot of people are like, what the fuck are we going to do with all of that? Yes, first of all, we tend to that. We understand that this is happening. And in the meantime, if you watch Israeli TV, you would see, there is this commission to check what was in 7th October, okay? So that we wouldn't see what's happening now in the news, while it's still discussed in the news. And people being asked to replace their ID, and then the new ID would be biometric, but only for 5 years. Very, very fucked up stuff. And then you don't even know if you want to have yes ID, but then you won't have housing, you won't have this, you won't have that. And so there's a lot that's being done. And of course we are at the time in history, okay, now Pluto is in 0 degrees Aquarius, just today entered the 0 degree Aquarius. Now this is time where it is the off with their heads time in history, and people are going to look for exactly the performers rather than the actual people. Okay, we saw what happened with Trump, and people asking, was it staged? Was it like, do you even ask that? Of course it was staged, but it doesn't mean that Trump staged that. Okay? And the bullet going right next to his ear, you know what happens to the person, to Trump, to the actor? he doesn't know. This is a part of the torture that they do in satanic ritual abuse. He doesn't know if it's going to happen or not going to happen. If they're only playing game or they're actually going to kill them. Well, Trump maybe knows because he has premonitions, his 29th ascendant. But this is why this is such an interesting, person. I opened this morning's video, or yesterday evening, or this morning's video with that. But this is also part of the practices that they are doing for satanic ritual abuse. Is just the practices that were being done to people in all kinds of initiation ceremonies, sacrifice, child sacrifice, human sacrifice, okay? White people didn't invent that. And also when you see people saying, oh, these people, they are white, they want to enslave people, they want to this, they want to that, that's another form of division. That's another form of tribal thinking. That's another form of falling into the jail experiment. Okay? In a movie called The Wave, they showed how they're doing something similar in school and creating basically people who believe they need to democide or to genocide and so on and so forth. That's just tribal wars. Okay, when Hitler was playing in Mein Kampf, he was playing on the idea of the Germanic tribe, and he wasn't dead wrong. They were free people, they were slaves, they were warrior people. And while there is a thing such as warrior people, and when our bloodline, even when mixed, we have Mars has to do with the blood and the bloodline. And I addressed the 22nd degree. If you have 22nd degree, whether it's Mars or not, you need to tend to that because you need to work with this energy. Okay, so we do have charts and we do have energies and we do have origins. We have that. That being said, if we go in tribal thinking and we adhere to the jail experiment, we're not doing the war. We're doing an image of the war. And we're not fighting the battle, we're fighting an image of the battle. And so it's just useless murder, useless torture. Yes, I cannot say useless rape because there is no useful rape. Okay, there's just everybody, both the perpetrators, everybody just suffers from that tremendously even. So that is kind of the things that were coming up for this Mercury 22. So you might heard some news, and Mercury is children. Why mother's sun was in the moon sign. And that brought me a little bit of moon 22 degree, because the moon is on a mundane chart is with the people. Moon is mothers, moon is food, moon is fertility. Childbirth could be, but not necessarily. And so moon is, yes, it's those archetypes. And when those archetypes are involved with murder or being murdered, this is where we would see charts like Ukraine chart, which has moon on the 22nd degree. And, we see what happened when that's triggered. The people were asked to do the murder. They were shown how to create Molotov bottles on TV in Ukraine for the people to participate in murder and defend themselves. Okay, moon. Another thing I saw with moon 22, when you talk about remedies, so you talk about safety houses, housing first, means of transportation, because moon is traveling. Okay. And housing for mothers who escape violence, so they don't have to be with the children, but also to help the parents to raise the children. That can also be. Moon is also how we see people. Think about the person who is moony or lunatic. Okay, Luna. So again, housing first and open dialogue, believing the person is a way to treat what we call psychosis. And if you don't know that, you will Basser van der Kolk or you will Frans Fanon. Okay? When I was in university, I did research on Frans Fanon. I was like, hey, there's some great ideas. And then he was telling people, talking about rape. And I thought he was talking about a person who had raped to treat the rape as like, that's not a good thing to do. So he has to find a way to take his power. Yes, to say the no. Yes, if you have to kill somebody or process you, yes, do it. But for not the rape, right? But that's not necessarily what he meant. And then you have the mother Basser van der Kolk, which basically reiterates that. And when those are your therapies, especially when you're vulnerable, when you're at loss, when you're unsupported, maybe even hurt, and basically experience also rejection from society, then the susceptibility to those types of thinking, especially if you're being ritually abused, psychically attacked, and prescribed medication that puts rage in the machine, or chips that do the same job, okay? And so this is where people get susceptible to trying things that they wouldn't have otherwise tried. Whereas the answer would be housing first, open dialogue, to believe for what happened, to process the grief. Okay? To remind you that what happened to you is not telling of your value as a person. All of these things. For this is also where we talk about children, we talk about mothers, we talk about, with Venus hour, also women, or LGBTQ, that they're also marginalized. Now we're marginalized in another society. Now what? They're going to rape and murder you en masse. So that's not a way to go. And so this Mercury 22 with the Sun on Procyon reminds us of the topic of housing and housing first, of the topic with Venus of believing, of validating, not to mess with people's heads, not to call them lunatic or crazy, but to bring them to a place where they are supported. And this is also tribal teaching. It's not new to Finland. It is tribal thinking as well. So we had both bad practices in tribalism and we had good practices in tribalism. And we need to understand what's good, what's not good. In the jail experiment, they would go for certain practices of medicine that disable the person from actual healing and perpetuate the endless war. Okay? And again, of course, Adolf Hitler with Mein Kampf was the big manifestation where he conquered nearly the entire world, and then he committed suicide with cyanide, because only when he was flowing with them all the way he would get this cyanide. And that was very good incentive not to be the victim, because they were either victim or perpetrator, and the death is in torture. So of course you prefer to die good death, so you get the cyanide, and then you kill as many as you have to kill to get the cyanide. Once you get the cyanide, then you can commit suicide. But before that, you cannot do it. This is the jail experiment. This is expandable children. This is satanic ritual abuse. But this is coming also from tribal societies. Again, calling on Andromeda, calling on Procyon to reconcile the irreconcilable. What's happening in the world today, we saw in many countries, with Germany, with Denmark, or Sweden, we have purposefully ridiculous verdicts, law, okay, where on the account of supposed oppression, little girls are being litigated for offending the many people that raped them, okay? We know that this is basically satanic ritual abuse expanding. And what happens for the people in the German parliament where they legalized pedophilia is because they were the expendable children grown, and then they were extorted in this way for that they had to rape and murder on tape in order to not be raped and murdered by torture. Okay, that no cyanide was available. So now what they don't know how to deal with or how to explain that to the world, because if they try, they're dead. They try to legalize pedophilia, which would only perpetuate the suffering so that they won't be able to be extorted. Okay? If we understand what happened in the world wars, when people talk about the Holocaust, and it's not just the Jews, it happened not only in Germany, happened in US, happened in Africa, happened in Israel and Palestine, both to Israelis and to Palestinians, happens in many places in the world, the same concept of the jail experiment. And the survivors, okay, when Viktor Frankl said those of us who were good did not survive, now what we think is that our leaders, they go and drink coffee and they enjoy raping people and and everything is fine. No. They are the people that were breeded in this way. And now they have to expand on the experiment, so not to die in torture. So when we the people, for example, even when we the people, God forbid, kill a leader, if we kill them with dignity, like was in the French Revolution, okay, people hanged people and then we had the guillotine, so many, it was mass death, but they did, at least they died in less torture. So even that was preferable for leaders. That type of death was preferable for leaders. This is also why some of them do that. They know the calculation better than us, because since children, those who survived were not those who were good. And it's by design. It's not of the nature of people, it's of the systemic. When Peter told me this country is North Korea, when I try to channel him and the first thing I hear is this country is North Korea, okay, it's not even North Korea, but this is the systemic design that designs people to be going through holocausts. Okay? And it's silent because we don't know about this. We walk about our day and we have our daily struggles and we're mad at our leaders because they have the good life. They have the big mansion and then they are taken away from it and put into a jail. And from this jail they have to work. And then when we hear that they had a person that they violated, a satanically ritual abuse, they say, oh, because of that. No, everybody had to do it. We don't know that. We the people don't know that. But the more we understand, if we are busy denying the Holocaust, then we don't know that not only that the Holocaust happened, it happened not only in Germany, absolutely not only to Jews, and absolutely not only by people who are not Jews. But then we say, oh, this is the Jews, this is Israel, the whole world is the Mossad. Really, that's your explanatory force of your theory, is the entire world is one tribe? What explanatory force has your theory? If you understand that every tribe since the Inuit worked like that to some degree, now we get what we're talking about. So we can begin to tend to that. And when you tend to these things, I said, when I talked about, I want you to listen to the video I made this morning or yesterday, my previous video. Something as simple as putting a glass of water and setting intention can you can receive information. Very simple practice, because you need the practice to be simple, because it's a practice you're able to do even in many conditions, okay? Get up in the morning, put a glass of water, and say, I dedicate this water for, I don't know, the expandable children victims, and I ask for what to do to change it. And then you will have answers, you will run into things. And also, not only answers, you begin to have the power, the strength to not comply, but also to enjoy life. Very simple practice. And you can also ask to improve the quality of the water that you're drinking every day. There's toxins in it. But you also remember that the toxins, what do they cause? What is Jay-Z known for? They need a safe room, a safe space where they are sensory system is okay. They need conditions that they cannot work in every conditions. They need a sense of meaning and purpose to work. Okay? Imagine what it's like to be born a child like this in 1984. It's me. Or 1963. Okay? I got Pluto Virgos. They seen this decades ago. We may not agree on everything, but they seen this decades ago. All the Pluto souls, they're free spirits. So the more we know what the problem is, the more we can tend to it in a very simple way, and the more solutions that we find to that also enlighten or lighten up for what is our struggle. Suddenly you have the humor. For example, today I was going and I was traveling in the malls all the time. I said, well, with what happens soon, we won't have malls, we won't have shopping, we won't have anything like that. So I have to go to the mall and see and that. And I saw a little bracelet from Shanghai that I wanted. And I was like, I don't know, ethically sourced, not ethically sourced. I really want that Shanghai. And then at the station, I saw somebody who she was like nice spirited and so on. We talk, I say, I'm an astrologer. And she said, oh, I really like a reading. Maybe I give her a reading, maybe not. But you see, I saw all kinds of things that I want. And then I said, oh, I really need the money. And then I met for opportunity for maybe to get the money. But then I was like, oh, but yes, but the children, but it is. Ask these questions and you get more solutions. Like a child, connecting with our own child's spirit is another way to tend to expandable children. Because today morning, what I got was tip about parenting, my inner child, but parenting. And I was like, oh, there was energy in my life, new energy that was coming. And I know for what the energy of what the person, and they were young father, and the energy, it was helping me to align my spine, especially around my neck, my vertebrae. But then they were trying to undermine my confidence, and I was like, what is this mess? Away, ga weg. And so when I think about this, for the reasons the energies met the young father, and they, and then one day I was going for the store, I was buying something, and the car didn't pass, and it passed on something less expensive. But that energy was present with me, and they felt very, very sad that they couldn't. It's like, how come you're in such situation? It's so terrible of what to do, or what this, or what that. And I said, no, I made a big a bottle of mishap with essential oils, which is expensive, and I did something unusual with my money that gives me a sense of play, a sense of some unusualness, magic. and so on. And of course it is decision, and of course I right now don't have money to buy this or that for what the card does, so I will live with what I have, or find maybe some new way to get money will come. Okay. And so immediately what I heard was the Imagine Dragons song that was saying, pain, you made me a believer. Now it was both the dramatic way of Imagine Dragons, it is so good, okay, the music and so on, it's so addictive, but also the understanding that there was kind of a no pain, no gain. And so I realized that there are places where we go to the gym and we lift weights and with this and Valhalla and so on. But there's also other ways to do these practices, like, people talk of yoga or stuff like that. They are more tender on the body. And for both of Pluto, so in Scorpio, and with evolutionary astrology, they need to evolve towards the Venus, towards the pleasure, towards achieving the same thing, but with pleasure, with love, with connection. And I'm like, oh, that's why this energy was coming to me, because I needed to grow like this, and I'm growing like this, and still need to refine that. And that energy is a young father, so of course it's important not to mess up with your children's psyche like that. And I was like, oh my God, I'm getting parenting tips that are good for even people whose children are not sold and murdered and traded and so on. And I have no children myself. So that was very exciting. And so this is why I tell this story now, because I want you to end on the note of there's so many ways we can tend to that, and there's so many things we can do to live our lives in ways that enable life. And that in itself has a magnetic power to draw people magnetically to that lifestyle. Hey, you managed to do that without suffering. How do you do that? Teach me how to do that. Okay, pay me. Now come. I'll teach you. And the person will have a lot of money to pay you, because they have been a slave of the system. So they have only one thing, money. For the rest, they don't have no health, no hope for life, no this, and all they do this is for the children. But all their money is from expandable children. Now, if they learn how to treat better themselves and their inner child, and they put the money to me, I can invest it in me, I can invest it in whistleblowers, I can invest it in housing first. I can do what I want. It has magnetic power to draw people in, but also to expose the truth of what the story is. So now I leave you with this story that you can go on and go on and about your life. And that was kind of a deep closure for today's themes, for all the scary stuff that came about. But again, when you do a very simple practice, even put a glass of water, put some money, put a candle, and dedicate it to a topic or to ancestors or to guides for what you would like to receive and what you would like to give reverence to. This is simple practice that can bring in a lot of support, a lot of healing, even if you don't work with talismans or great powerful energies. It can put you on a more aligned way. And again, if you have solution, you still have asked questions, you still have feel powerless, keep asking the questions, keep like a child to be curious. It's very good to do on Wednesdays, to be curious like a child. Very good to do on Thursdays, Jupiter, okay? On a Sunday night, and on a Saturday night. Okay, very good to do these practices where you tend to your inner child. And if you look at your fifth house, where's your fifth house? Okay, today Sun is in my fifth house. This month Sun is in my fifth house natally, which is children and my inner child. So those were, and the moon is in Sagittarius, so I get teachings around that. And after that, to come back here and to see, oh, it's my colleague. My colleagues made videos of astrology, of the new moon, of this. I felt so much more satisfied. And I said, oh, before I go watch my colleagues, I want to share this teaching with you. This is a bit different for what everybody around does, because now you have content to bring that is unique. And so, of course, there's new moon, there's full moon, yes, in Capricorn. I'm off to watch Victor, and I'm off to watch another channel I haven't mentioned in a while, Moonlight Astrology, I think her name is. And they're both great channels to watch the lunations. I don't know if I'll be doing a new moon in Capricorn, but that's what I'm going to watch right now. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another episode. Bye-bye.